Hey, how's it going? Bill Lethman here for Money Evolution. In this video, I'm going to be talking about retirement planning in your 50s. So if you're in your 50s, like I'm in my 50s, you may be starting to get a lot more serious about planning for your retirement and really trying to see what does this next 10 or 15 years look like, and what are some of the things that you can do and the steps you can take to really make sure that your retirement's going to be in order, that you're on the right track to be able to retire at age 60 or 65 or 67 or whatever your target age is. But you also may be realizing, like I did, that your 50s are really kind of an interesting time period probably in your life. Hopefully, if your career is going well, you're making more money than you have ever in your lifetime. But you also may have a lot more expenses right now in your lifetime too. At least that's what my experience has been. If you've got kids that are still living in the house, maybe they're high schoolers, and there's a lot of expenses related to sports and extracurricular activities and things like homecoming and prom and an extra car possibly for the family, or maybe your kids are in college, or maybe they're about to go to college and you've got some extra expenses there. I know there for a while when my kids were going through a lot of that, there was almost an endless stream of excess cash flow going out of my budget on a monthly basis, and it could be a little overwhelming, a little stressful at the time. And if you're really not on top of it, it's very easy for it to let itself get away from you, and maybe you stop saving as much money for retirement or something if you're not careful, because you're not really prepared for some of those things. So what I'm going to be talking about in this video are some very specific things that you should be thinking about, and some steps and action items that you could be doing to get your retirement on track so that you can start to feel confident about maybe what that retirement looks like 10, 15 years down the road, and know that your retirement's on track. Or if it's not, what are some of the things that you can do to get it back on track? Okay, so let's jump in. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to be working on mapping out your retirement cash flow projections, but we're going to be looking at this in 3 phases. Phase 1 is going to be, what does your current income and expense situation look like in the now with all of those extra things that are happening? What does it look like way out into the future, or maybe 10 or 15 years out into the future? What does it look like at your full retirement age? Full retirement age is a term that Social Security uses that basically tells you the age that you can start to get unreduced Social Security benefits. And for everybody watching this, if you're in your 50s, that's going to be age 67. But many of you are going to want to retire early, and I think that's a great thing. If you want to retire early before full retirement age, we're going to want to look at the things that are happening in that early retirement phase, because it's before your income maybe has stabilized. You may actually have some extra expenses in that early retirement phase. So we're going to look at that retirement projection in 2 phases. What does it look like at full retirement age? What does it look like in early retirement phase? But the first step in this whole process is to really get a handle and understand what's happening with your current income and expenses. And as your kids are maybe getting into those teenage years, or maybe they're going into college, you might see, like I did, a lot of those expenses in our household really going up. And so you want to get a handle on that. You want to look at your expenses in a couple of different categories: house, we can call it transportation, or cars, and then you're going to have lifestyle expenses. And what I want you to do is really think about all of the things that you spend money on. Some of those things are going to happen on a monthly basis. Some of those things are going to happen maybe less frequently. You may pay your car and homeowner's insurance every 6 months. You may pay your property taxes a couple times a year, for example. You are going to have unexpected things that are going to come up throughout the year. The goal here is to try to think of what some of those unexpected things are. So you're going to want to think about, for example, on your house, you may have some maintenance, and you want to think about a number that you can put in there. Say, hey, we're going to have $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a year for maintenance, because there's always going to be things that are going to come up. But you also want to be thinking about those regular expenses, things like utilities and your property taxes and your insurance. And even as you go into retirement, if you still have that house, those are expenses that you're going to have pretty much for as long as you own that particular house. Transportation, same thing. You want to be looking at, okay, do you buy a car? Do you lease a car? If you lease a car, and you're planning on leasing for the rest of your life, you want to be thinking about, what is that lease payment going to be? And we can extrapolate that way out into the future. Even if you own cars, and I buy cars, I tend to drive them literally until they the wheels almost fall off. I've driven cars almost to 200,000 miles, as long as they still kind of look good and they're not too much of a maintenance expense. But there's still expenses expenses there. You've got to go and buy a new car every so often, even if it's every 5 or 10 years you're buying a new car. There's an expense there, and you want to be thinking about what that is. And we've done other videos where I really get into the details here on that. But you also may have, in addition to these things, you might have kids expenses, I think, are the big one that a lot of people are going to have. And you may have expenses related to the kids' school. You may have sports and extracurricular activities that are going to be in there. You may have an extra car, for example, that the family kids drive, or maybe you have a car for each one of your kids. A lot of people do nowadays, but you want to be thinking about those things, because chances are, hopefully, you're not going to be having those kids-related expenses for the rest of your life. You may also have groceries, for example, in the lifestyle expenses, but there may be additional groceries like we have and had is for the kids, because if you got 4 people eating instead of 2 people eating, or whatever it is in your household, 3 kids, that's not free. And so you want to be thinking about that. And some of those grocery expenses may start to drop off. Things like health insurance, for example, if you're just you and your spouse, or you individually, and you don't have to pay for health insurance for your kids, those are all the things that you want to be looking at. The other thing up here related to your house is your mortgage. If you still have a mortgage payment, obviously you want to include it. And you want to be looking at all of those different expenses, and your income in this phase should be pretty straightforward. For most people, it's probably just going to be, if you're working for a corporation, you're going to have W-2 income. Maybe you've got some bonuses that you want to factor in here as well. I want to be careful about the bonuses, because those bonuses, they can drop off. They can go down. They're not something that's a guaranteed part of your income. But you want to be thinking about your income and minus your expenses. Included in that expenses, of course, is going to be taxes, and then your savings. And that's going to be money that's going into like your 401k or your IRA, your Roth IRA, whatever you're saving money into. And all of that, basically your income minus those expenses, minus taxes, minus your savings, is going to be your net cash flow. Hopefully that number is positive. But by creating a little bit of a map of this, and even looking ahead 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, and thinking about, okay, we might have a wedding coming up, and that's going to be X number of dollars. We got our kids going into college, and maybe you save for it, but maybe there's still going to be some shortfalls depending on what school they go to, for example, and you want to be thinking about those extra expenses there. And you might say, hey, we're okay right now. We've got positive cash flow today, but maybe in a couple years with some of these extra expenses we're forecasting, that cash flow may go negative. And it's good to get ahead of that now, so you can start to really plan for it and understand that cash flow, because all of a sudden, if that happens, you're going to be, that money's going to go somewhere. It's going to go on a credit card, or you're going to have to start saving less money, and that's all things that are going to go into that long-term retirement map. The same thing that we just did there, we're going to want to do for your full retirement age. And the reason why I jump out to full retirement age is because that's when, again, that income and expense start to stabilize. And we want to basically carry all of this stuff over. Again, if those kids' expenses aren't there, we want to basically, obviously, not include that. If we have a mortgage that's going to be paid off by the time you retire, we're not going to include the mortgage. But most of these other expenses are going to be there. You might have some work-related expenses. I didn't put that on here either, but you may have some work-related expenses. Maybe you were going out to lunch every day, and that was costing you a few $100s a month. If you're not going to have that in retirement, you want to be thinking about that. But you might have some extra things in retirement. You may be spending money on travel now, but as you go into retirement, you have more free time, more flexibility. That travel budget may increase a little bit. Or maybe say, hey, we're going to join a country club, and that's going to have some extra additional expenses there that we want to include. Or maybe we're going to snowbird. We're going to rent a house someplace warm for a couple of months, or whatever that may be. Some people are buying a second house that they want to have as they go into retirement. But you want to be thinking about all of that, all those expenses, and basically do the same thing. You want to look at what income you're going to have coming in. For most people at full retirement age, you're going to have, or at least be eligible to get your Social Security benefits. I think full retirement age for most people is a good starting point to start thinking about when they should collect their Social Security. We've got other videos where we've talked about that and looked at the differences between taking it early or even delaying it all the way till age 70, which is the maximum age to maximize the Social Security benefits there, but you might have Social Security, you might have a pension, and we're going to just do the same thing. We're going to look at all of those different sources of income and subtract out the expenses that we just talked about there, and that's going to basically be your cash flow gap. Now here, while you're working, we hope that you have a cash flow surplus. You have excess cash flow, but in retirement, most people probably are going to have a cash flow gap. And what that gap tells us is how much money you're going to have to take out of your portfolio. So if your gap, let's just say, is $80,000 after Social Security and everything, doing some very simple math using something called the 4% rule, something I've talked about on the channel here. You may have heard me talk about it, other people talk about it, but the 4% rule is a very simple rule of thumb that says that you should limit your retirement withdrawals to 4% or less in retirement. So dividing 80,000 by 0.04 tells you that you basically have to have about $2 million at your full retirement age to have a pretty good chance that your money's going to last you for the rest of your life. And so the first step in this whole process is to kind of see, are you on the right track? So based on the amount of money that you have in your retirement accounts today, or all the money that you have accumulated for retirement, and what you're going to be putting into over the next 10 or 15 years, however long it is between your age today and that full retirement age, is that going to get you to $2 million with a reasonable rate of return? There's some inflation and taxes and things like that that are going to be part of this, but that's going to be the first step in just really getting a really good, quick rule of thumb to see if you're on the right track. If it is, if your current assets and additional assets that you're going to be saving over the next 10 or 15 years are going to get you to that $2 million, well then great, your retirement's on track to be able to retire at age 67. However, like I said, is that a lot of people are going to want to retire early. And so the way we do it, if we're just looking at this on kind of a real rough outline sketch, is we want to look at the early retirement as really a separate target, okay? And so whatever that number is that's going to get you to that $2 million, that's one part of your retirement. But then we want to do is we want to say, okay, if you want to retire at age 60, you're going to need 7 years to cover expenses in this time. And you may have some different things going on. For one, you may not have Social Security. In fact, your Social Security wouldn't even be eligible to begin receiving until age 62. So you're going to have at least a couple of years where you're going to have no Social Security benefits kicking in. You may have a pension that doesn't kick in until age 65, or maybe you could take it earlier, but it's going to be at a really reduced rate. So you may not have any income coming in during that first 7-year time period, especially if you want to maximize Social Security benefits. So if you need whatever that is, let's just say we said we need the 80,000 there. So let's say your goal for retirement spending is 150,000, then what we should really be looking at is covering that $150,000 every year. So that's, I'm doing math in my head here as we're doing that. So that would be $1,050,000. If I did that correctly, that's $1,050,000 that you would have just to cover your early retirement. And I think it's good to look at that differently and separately, I should say, from the full retirement age benefit there. And again, this is just a really rough outline, so if you're just starting to put this together, I think this is a great exercise to go through. I think looking at a budget, and there's some great tools out there. We have a tool, actually, I'll talk about that in a minute, but there's great tools out there that can track your expenses. If you've got like an American Express or even a Visa card, a lot of times they'll give you reports every year that'll break down how much money you spent at grocery stores and travel and auto-related expenses and things like that. Your bank account may be able to do that, but there's actually tools that'll aggregate it and say, okay, I've got a credit card, my wife's got a credit card, we've got our bank account, and something that'll bring all of it in together and give you some of those reports. I think those are excellent because I think the first step to improving something is really to start tracking it and really understanding what's actually happening so that you can say, wow, I didn't realize, I had no idea we were spending that much money on X, and maybe we should be doing some things to get to an improvement of that. But anyway, I hope this has been helpful. One of the things I wanted to mention here is we have a program through Money Evolution called the Retirement Time Machine. And basically what it is, it's a very high level, very sophisticated way to really create this map for you. It's a combination of a little bit of DIY, creating of a financial plan, but there's also a lot of guidance and help along the way. So we combine basically a tool, a financial planning tool, along with some instructional videos and even the ability to talk with one of our advisors to get some clarity on your goals. But basically, it's going to be a computerized version of this, where you can be a lot more specific and say, hey, I've got this expense in this year, or I've got this expense over these years, and really kind of create that retirement roadmap. So anyway, real quick, if you want to learn more about that retirement time machine, you can head over to our website there, moneyevolution.com, and look at the retirement time machine. That is a great place to start for anybody that's in their 50s, that's really looking to just start getting some of this retirement stuff organized. And then, of course, we have our higher end financial plan where you work with us one-on-one. That's called the Money Evolution Plan. But you can look at all of that stuff over on our website there. But anyway, hope this has been helpful. Again, check out our information on the website, moneyevolution.com, and I'll see you back in one of our next videos.